All right, guys, we are back in Malibu, California, Cultural Capital World on episode number 2 of this spray paint Patrician. You'll remember in the last episode, if you didn't see it, there's a playlist right up there right about now. You're going to want to watch that first to see the horrid, sordid condition that this was in before we got the spray paint off of it. Now we're going to pick up where we left off, and we're going to have a surprise visit from Fred, who will do some work and then give us 100 times that amount of work to do before this project is over, which will be never. Let's hit the bench. All right, guys, let's have a look. You will remember that we started off with this Harmony Patrician that had spray paint white on the front, and we could never figure out why this happened. This laid around the shop in Acton for a while. Back of it is obviously mahogany, and somebody, for some reason, decided, well, I want it to look like Richie Valens' guitar. But anyway, you saw the episode. If you didn't, it's right up there, where we took literally spray paint off of this to reveal this spruce top, which unfortunately or fortunately had that little spot in the wood. So it was probably the last one sold, and finally somebody said, I got to cover that up. And so I wanted you to see it. It took quite a bit of stuff to get it off. I was actually hoping I could get down to the varnish over what was there on the spruce. I don't like getting into the old finish being gone, but that wasn't possible. So we got it down, did a lot of razor blade work, scraping, sanding, and got it at a point where it has gone through, believe it or not, 2,000 grit sanding. So it's nice and smooth. You'll always be able to see where the bridge was, and I really want that to stand out, so whichever one of you people gets this knows the story. Anyway, there it is, and let's do some French polishing to bring out the luster of this unique piece.
So we're going to use one of two types of shellac. This is what's called white shellac, and we'll go over how you centrifuge your white shellac and your orange shellac, so you get just the cream. You don't get any of the dregs. Anyway, I'm going to start my beam. This surface has been sanded to 500, which we're going to put on a coat, and then Ken will work it up to 2,000. Then we'll be able to really do some really good French polishing, okay? So just watch me. I can't talk and work, obviously. I started developing a pleat, like the pleat in a sleeve. And the problem is when you get when it's not tight like that is, it can stick. What I'm doing is I'm moving the cotton around so that I can squeeze out a bunch at a time. Hear that sound difference? Going around the edges, the center takes care of itself. Hear that sound? It's because it's not as sanded there. Hear how our sound is changing as we're filling up the grain? And what Ken's going to do is use 600A very briefly. Basically make one pass with 600A over the whole thing and then go to 1,000 for a number of passes until you can feel how, like you can hear this. But once you start sanding it, you won't. And it's going to be a nice color, don't you think? Anyway, so much for now. And we'll pick it up later after it's been sanded out to 2,000. Good night.
Okay, guys, we are back in non-stop action acting, and this guitar is acting all privileged and entitled. Oh, I'm used to the crowd in Malibu. Well, guess what? Welcome to reality, son. Vacation. This is not endless summer's time for you to get a job. Who was I talking to? Anyway, I don't remember. All you know is the last clip, Fred was working on this and making promises that I was going to do the heavy lift on the sanding. We had taken this down from spray paint to wood to 500 grit, and then Fred did a couple of base layers of French polish, which is this secret sauce, i.e., I can't tell you, and cotton, saturated with said sauce, wool sock, fine linen, stretched over the end and flattened out to where you can squeeze it and you can watch that turn wet. You see that? Yeah. So that's how it was done. This was kind of like a sanding sealer in that those first couple passes of the French polish were really wet, meaning that they're running in the pores in the uneven spots. So Fred suggested that we start off with 600, jump to 1,000, and then increments thereafter. I want to show you something pretty cool. This is my sandpaper management system. People use this to do taxes. You see, in there, there's all kinds of different sandpapers, and you label them up here. Okay? You are welcome. You betcha. And then you just close it with this happy gadget and put it where you can reach it, and it's almost like a book with a handle. So, another thing, you're not doing heavy work when you're getting up over 500 and stuff, and they have these pads here, and I have them arranged, they're sanding pads, and they're on sponges. Oh, look at this one, 1,500. See that? So you can use these wet, don't put them back in here wet, let them dry out. But this is something you can keep right next to your sandpaper portfolio. Next thing I want to tell you about is Wipe All 80 rags. I've told you about them. This one has been cut up. They are paper and they are lintless. You do not want to be French polishing or putting on things and getting pieces of lint. So I'm going to go along here and wipe this off in between. I am not going to do wet sanding or anything like that. I am just going to work this over with certain grits of paper, and I'm going to show you. But it will pick up anything and it will hold it like a dusting rag. No, you cannot use this for dusting inside of the house. The skills are not even remotely attached to each other. So as Fred said, we are going to start off with 600 grit on the sanding pad. Now I want you to listen to the sound. I'm not going to have you endure all of it, but listen to what happens when I go, say, over in this area where this branch whorl is and the discoloration of the natural form of the tree is versus elsewhere. But we are just going to knock down what's there. Okay, little Wipe All 80 there after the 600. And I think you'll be able to hear in between when I use the rag that there's less sound each time. Now I'm going to go into, yeah, there was some taken off. Now I'm going to go into 1000 grit again. I am not going to wet it. I am just going to keep it floating loosely in my hand. I'm not going to get down in the different areas or push my thumb down and localize it. Ideally, I'd actually have this on a sanding block, but here we go. I'm going to spend about 5 minutes with each grade from here on up now. Okay, we are getting towards the end of our time period with this 1000 grit, and it is feeling kind of glassy, like we're not really getting anywhere now, except hanging up on those F's. I'm trying to do that with my fingers for that reason. Remember, hurt your fingers, just don't hurt the sandpaper or the F-hole. But also, whenever you can, especially towards the end and when you have the opportunity, make maximum use of the sandpaper, making complete runs up and down. Those F-holes kind of mess that up, but yeah, like so. Expose a new area of the white ball 80 by folding it, and then we're just going to go okay. We're going up to 1200 now. All right, we're down to the end on the 1200. I want you to notice that there's stuff on the paper, and it's starting to build up along that little dip where the tone bar is. You know, you can stick your finger in here, feel the tone bars, and that's the downfall of many dehydrated arch tops. But there's a new unexposed edge side surface of the white ball 80, and we just go over all of this, and this was our 1200. I think you're going to be able to tell if you rewind that the sound is getting better, but there is still stuff coming off. Finally, last of our paper pieces, it is the 1500. All right, my timer says that we have done our requisite pendants with the 1500. We'll take another side of the white ball 80 that has not seen anything before, and see what that level of elbow grease has turned up. Yeah, you can tell there is a difference. You see that? Okay, now we're going to get into the 2000 grit pad. I like these. They're cheap. They wear out. You can throw them away. There seems to be stuff disappearing here now. All right, we're getting the end of our 2000. And it seems to be doing something here. Here is unused white ball 80 folded in half. Let's get whatever we can off of here. Yes. So, it's fairly dirty. Now what we're going to do is we're going to get this cleaned off, get the dust off of it, and get ready to go back to lac finish. All right, there we go. Now we're going to do the unspeakable. We're going to hit this with naphtha because we need to get everything that's dusty and nasty off of the top of this thing. Do you want the house paint back? Remember, naphtha will vaporize off, so this surface will be dry to work in no time. And we kind of want to look at our cloth, and it's coming up pretty clean. We might do this a couple times until it is clean. I want to make sure that I get in here where any of that gunk we were using that's hiding on the side of the F-holes won't come back to haunt us later. The fireplace likes these a lot. Okay, we have followed Fred's instructions very clearly. Now it's back to the glory work. Look at this. See when I squeeze it? You see it gets wet? The glove gets wet. You don't want to douse everything in this stuff. But again, you want to come on, keep moving. The thing will start to tug at you. This vise is a good thing because it keeps everything stable. I have a bean bag under here, but you just keep moving in concentric circles and figure eights, and if you need to stop, you go off. If you don't, you'll see the imprint of this fine linen in there. If you start to get a crease in this, you'll hear it. It'll start clicking. So again, you take it off. You don't just pick up. Take it off and tighten it up by doing this. Here we go. Now, when you first start doing this, you're going to start being like, oh wow, how many times am I going to have to do this? And then sooner or later you're going to develop a Cyndi Lauper understanding, and that's time after time. Yeah. So you can feel the sticking. You can probably hear it. And once I get where I'm moving in bigger sections, I'm just doing it like this. I have so many more times to do this. And you'll notice that it's drying off. So you can do this numerous times a day. Over and over, and then off. All right, guys, I put that Patrician away where it's not going to be dust on it or whatever. I swear these Harmonies, I've got them coming out of my ears, and of course I chose them all, but it sure is nice to go from something like these with the bodies coming off to find something redeeming hiding underneath some spray paint. Yeah. I would have never guessed that for a mark like this, somebody on an Econo archtop, they must have been really proud of everything to destroy it like that. Anyway, you'll see that one in the future. I've got some people asking questions about it, whether it's going to have electronics on it or not. Gasp. Well, you know what? It could be yours if the price is right. I am starting to build up inventory of built out instruments, and so if you see something on here that shows up here, there, or everywhere, send me an email. Hey, give me a like and a subscribe, and make sure you hover the mouse up there, because there's bound to be something even more useless than this episode in that playlist. I'll see you soon if you keep up with this ignorance.